tonight, the RCMP is investigating a suspicious death in Bay Roberts, a body discovered inside a burning truck. That story and
Baron's family, they are far from here, so they are going through unimaginable pain.
A newcomer murdered in St. John's, allegedly killed by her husband. We learn more about the couple as the Iranian community raises money to send her body back home.
These buttons are supposed to alert Campus Enforcement Patrol if there's an emergency situation.
Every single year, there is no changes. If anything, there are more buckets collecting those juices.
Broken call buttons, ceilings held up by tarps and tape. Those MUN students are calling the state of their campus an embarrassment.
We have to definitely ensure that we are building homes that are on the lower end of pricing. And we also have to ensure that we have some of those more expensive homes because certain people do want those.
But the Home Builders Association says the thing that's lacking in this province is land.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with disturbing news out of Conception Bay North. Human remains have been discovered and police suspect foul play. Here and Now's Terry Roberts has our top story.
This was the dramatic scene on Country Road in Bay Roberts Monday morning. A 2021 Chevrolet Colorado pickup engulfed in flames. Today, the RCMP revealed that human remains were found inside, and investigators are probing what they're calling a suspicious death. The RCMP's major crime unit is investigating. The medical examiner is also involved. Police have not released the identity of the deceased person, nor do we know an age or gender. But investigators are asking for the public's help. If you saw this pickup during the early hours of Monday morning, you're asked to contact the RCMP. It's the second time in recent days that a burning vehicle, possibly linked to a crime, has been discovered in Conception Bay North. This black BMW was torched in Mackinson's on Saturday afternoon. RCMP believed that BMW was involved in a shooting more than 150 kilometers away in the tiny Random Island community of Robinson Bight earlier in the day. Someone fired at least 7 shots during an incident on the main road. 2 homes were struck by stray bullets. No one was injured in that incident, and there have not been any arrests. Now, is Saturday's shooting in Robinson Bight in any way connected to what happened in Bay Roberts? We don't know. But the discovery of human remains inside a burning vehicle in Conception Bay North has a familiar ring to it. A burned-out vehicle was discovered near Harbour Grace in the spring of 2023. Inside that vehicle were the remains of Adam Mercer. At the time, police described Mercer's death as a heinous crime, and those responsible have not been brought to justice. Now police are investigating another suspicious and similar death. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, tonight we've returned to the story of an Iranian woman murdered in St. John's this summer. Her death left the local community in shock. Now friends are rallying to bring her home. The CBC's Ariana Gomez has this feature report.
Baranabet came to St. John's in May with hopes of building a new life with her husband. The couple was married for 11 years. 2 months later, her body was found inside this suitcase near Water Street West in downtown. Her husband, 34-year-old PhD student from MUN, Mehdi Purbagi, was also found dead by police in the couple's apartment a day before Abed's body was found. The RNC won't confirm if this was a murder-suicide case, but they say Abed's husband was involved. The murder hit the local Iranian community hard, especially those who knew Purbagi well.
So this tragedy has deeply shaken our community. As to most of us, Mahdi appears to be a very kind, respectful, calm, and caring person. So it's unbelievable.
Purbagi wasn't just a graduate student. He was also the voice behind a Persian true crime podcast.
داشتم کنترلم رو روی چیزی از دست میدادم.
He narrated stories of notorious criminals taking on the role of killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and Dennis Nilsen.
His podcast also is one of among the popular one. It is in Farsi.
Purbagi's last recording left listeners stunned. He tells the story of a killer who just murdered an innocent woman. At one point, Purbagi talks about contemplating his own death. He closes that episode with the following line: "The dead don't speak, but their killers do." While the details of his podcast doesn't mirror the couple's real-life fate, Purbagi's words left his listeners drawing eerie similarities. For this community organizer, this tragedy highlights a deeper issue of intimate partner violence and how often it goes unnoticed.
I think it's really sad that we have to talk about this sort of violence when something terrible happens. A lot of the support and protection comes from within our own communities, and I think that would be my biggest message. Really work at being supported by other people who are in your community. I mean, reaching out, all those things, those are things, of course, ultimately we want women to be safe and to be protected. And in some cases that means leaving, that means filing charges in some cases, but sometimes it starts with building good relationships.
Building relationships, something Abed never had the chance to do before her life was violently cut short. Even though Hajedari didn't know Abed personally, her story hits close to home.
Like many of us, she came to Canada to, looking for a brighter, better future. It's a kind of heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking to see that how her life got short in such a tragic way.
Back in Iran, Abed's family is in grief as they wait for her to come home.
So Baron's family, they are far from here, so they are going through unimaginable pain, and the all news that they actually receive devastating them. They've been waiting for Baron to return home since July that tragedy happened.
Purbagi was quietly buried at a Muslim cemetery in St. John's. The Iranian community wants to send Abed's remains back to her family in Iran, but that's complicated. GoFundMe has shut down Abed's fundraising page because it involves Iran. And with no Iranian embassy in Canada, Abed's repatriation has become even more complex. Ariana Gomez, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in other news, a 47-year-old man is dead after crashing into a light pole on his electric scooter. The RNC says the man from St. John's wasn't wearing a helmet at the time. The collision happened around 9:20 Monday morning in the area of Water Street and Hamilton Avenue. Police are looking to review any CCTV or dash cam footage taken during that time. The leader of the opposition says the Premier's plan for investigating how the Child Welfare Department handled long-running abuse allegations needs a broader scope. The Premier has given the job to the Child and Youth Advocate's office, but the advocate's review is limited to policies and procedures in the Department of Children, Seniors and Social Development.
I don't think it goes far enough. I think, reviewing the department is only one aspect of it. I think we ought to know that, there were reviews, there were complaints brought forward to the police department. They didn't get acted upon. We need to know why. What happened? Why did it happen? What was the cause of that?
Tony Wakeham stopped short of definitively saying what he thinks should happen next, but says options include a judicial inquiry or public inquiry. Last week, CBC Investigates published details from untested search warrant documents in the Bruce Escott-Tony Humby case. Two men facing dozens of charges of sexual violence against youth. Those court filings provide an account of how social workers and police were aware of allegations against Humby for years before charges were laid in the spring of 2023. Humby has pleaded not guilty, and Escott has reached a plea deal. Well, cracks, leaks, crumbling tiles. Some Memorial University students say campus infrastructure is worsening year after year. Today, dozens of students and faculty members marched to Confederation Building to demand better. Here Now's Jessica Singer brings us that story.
Some Memorial University students say they are fed up with crumbling infrastructure on campus. They want more money from the provincial government to fix problem areas they say are health and safety issues, including this one here in the underground tunnels in Memorial University, also known as the Munnels. I'm with Nicholas Keogh and he's with the Students' Union. Nicholas, what is this here?
We have a recycling bin with a tube coming out of it. There's a tarp to catch all liquid, I'm assuming, that comes from the ceiling. And the tarp is fastened with duct tape that is peeling off the ceilings. We've been dealing with this for a while, but it's definitely become worse because of the funding cuts to Memorial over the last 11 years.
So, Nicholas, what exactly are we seeing here?
Well, we see an emergency button that is completely out of order. There are many emergency buttons on campus that are out of order. This was brought to me by a board member, but it's a huge issue for a lot of students, especially female students, because these buttons are supposed to alert campus enforcement and patrol if there's an emergency situation. So there's ceiling tiles that will physically crumble and fall to the ground. Sometimes I've seen it in the bookstore, I've seen it many different places. There's holes in the ceilings. I'm humiliated, especially as a Newfoundlander. I'm humiliated that people from other countries and other provinces go here and see this out of our only public university.
More money to fix the university's infrastructure is just one thing students rallied for today. They marched to Confederation Building demanding the government stop funding cuts and reverse tuition hikes.
My sign says no more asbestos in my nose, and that's because there are asbestos warnings in all the Munnels, and the infrastructure is absolutely deteriorating in the majority of the buildings. The administration claimed that we have to have high tuition so that we can be a prestigious university, but you look around the university and there is no prestige. It is not being allocated to the students or our infrastructure.
Students, faculty, and union members launched a campaign last week demanding an end to the budget cuts they say have been going on for a decade. If the funding isn't restored, students like Jean say they don't feel comfortable walking on a campus that seems to be falling apart in front of them. Jessica Singer, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, students were also protesting in Corner Brook outside Memorial's Grenfell campus today. Their main issue, high student fees. They say bring back the freeze.
Tuition fees have got to go! So today we're fighting for free education, free and accessible education for all. Recently, it doesn't impact me, but it impacts all the newer students. There's been a hike in tuition. It's gone up drastically. My little brother just started going here, and it's about tripled what we pay, what I pay.
Meaning that we are showing the government that we care.
I really want the government to give us back the funds that they've previously taken away, and I believe in free and accessible education for all, even for international students who are, coming from across the world. They deserve to pay the same fees and tuitions we're all paying.
Let's go!
We're here asking the government to reinstate the tuition freeze and to make education accessible for everyone who wants it, because the skyrocketing tuition fees are not a joke. Students are struggling and we need them to understand this. First of all, international students, they have it very rough with some of them are paying $2,000 a course per semester, and it keeps going up until 2026. Even those students who are, they're grandfathered into the new system, it's still a lot of money because, there's exchange rates back home and families are just trying to make ends meet. Students need an education to better themselves, and they're making it very difficult for people to achieve this.
Hey! Ho! Tuition fees have got to go! Hey! To get a job, nowadays you need a post-secondary education, and if students are unable to get that, then I don't know what we're going to do. And Newfoundland needs workers to want to stay here and work here in Newfoundland, so I think free and accessible education for all would be wonderful and something we need to work towards.
Well, there's a worker shortage when it comes to building. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation estimates the province will need 60,000 new homes in the next 6 years. But the Home Builders Association says that's a daunting figure and just not doable. The provincial branch of the Canadian Home Builders Association hosted a housing forum today at the Delta in St. John's, an opportunity for builders and developers to meet and discuss challenges and workshop solutions. Those observations will then be presented to municipalities. The Home Builders Association says a number of factors are slowing down development.
Right now we are finding so many shortages when it comes to labour. Many skilled trades are unavailable, so that is one major challenge that our builders are finding. Access to land has been something that's been discussed quite extensively today. In order to access land and to develop the land, that is definitely slowing down development and adding to the costs.
Well, purpose-built rentals also play a role in this conversation, Foster says, and so does affordability. More on the roadblocks builders have been coming across, still ahead in about 13 minutes on Here and Now.
We are the grade 5s from McDonald Drive Elementary, and Ashley's weather is next.
Hi, I'm Adam Walsh, host and producer of The Signal. Tomorrow on the show, we are diving into the top international headlines of this week, namely from the Middle East and also U.S. politics. I've got a couple of folks who will help us navigate through these stories, talk about what they mean globally and to us here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And here's my question for you. How are you affected by these types of stories? That's tomorrow on The Signal, 12:05 on the island, half an hour earlier in most of Labrador.
Ashley, just before the break there, we saw some little kiddos there talking about your weather coming up. So you had a school visit today.
Yes, got to chat with the kids at McDonald Drive Elementary. Grade 5 students are in their weather unit. So typically I go in and we chat about the weather and everything that they've learned, and they ask lots and lots and lots of questions. And this was no different, so it was really great.
What kind of questions did you get?
Everything from weather-related questions. The most popular question is always, how does a tornado form? And then even had some non-weather related questions. But yeah, it was great. They were lovely.
Well, I have a weather-related question for you. How many 20-degree days did we have this summer for some parts of the province?
That is a very great question. We've had quite a few. Today, not so much though. Let's take a look at the temperatures this afternoon. Our temperatures, we're pretty much done with those 20-degree days. Pretty close though in Lab City, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Makkovik. But in St. John's, we're at 10 degrees right now. But over the summer, this is the last couple of days that we've, or the last 10 years, I should say, that we've seen temperatures over 20 degrees. The average in this time frame, actually from 1991 to 2020, was 55 days. That's what we typically see through the year. And as I just jump out of frame here, you can see we were around there or even a little bit above for most of the 2010s, I guess. And then as you head towards 2020, we start to see a little bit of an uptick with the exception of 2023, where we were at 51. But 75 days is how many days we saw over 20 degrees, 20 or more in St. John's. And if we take a look at the number across portions of the province, the highest was actually in Gander, 85 days. And typically you see 63 days at that. A new record for Port aux Basques at 41 days. You typically see 21. Even, areas like Stephenville, Winterland, all seeing over 70. Deer Lake, same thing. And then as we look towards the Northern Peninsula and even up across Labrador, 75 days, Happy Valley, Goose Bay saw a temperature of 20 degrees or more, and you typically see 53. And Wabush, again, another record, 73 days, 38 is what you typically see. You just crushed that record, or crushed the average, I should say. Both St. Anthony and Nain tied for your record, so that is what you've seen in previous years. So no surprise there, because most of us did see our warmest summer on record. But again, that has not been the case. It has felt very spring-like for most of eastern Newfoundland and along the northeast coast. The reason for that is an area of low pressure offshore. We do have an area of high pressure, though, that is keeping the clouds clear, the skies clear, rather, up across Labrador and the western portion of the island today. Where temperatures, like I said, were pretty nice, but we do have those onshore winds, and that is bringing lots of shower activity along with drizzle for eastern Newfoundland. Stick with it, though. We've got a couple more, well, let's say 24 hours left of seeing this for now. But that will certainly be the story as we head through tonight. We can definitely see where those clouds are, the edge of those clouds, rather. And as we head through tonight, we should start to see some clearing. But we've been in this pattern. I've been talking about this pattern for well over a week now. We're going to finally see a break, and that will be as we head towards the weekend. That area of low pressure will move off. We'll see a ridge of high pressure dominate the weather picture. Further south, that will change the winds from northerly to more southerly, so we should see some breaks in the cloud cover as we head through the weekend. Unfortunately, though, we get back into next week and we're right back in that pattern, that onshore pattern, and that does mean we'll see those cooler temperatures and potential for rain as we head there as well. Tomorrow, our weather will eventually break for most of us. We are through central rather, and eventually in the east. So it may start raining through the day, but as the day goes on, the clouds should start to see a little bit of break in there. The northerly winds will stick around, though, northwesterlies 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Not the case to the west. Looking at lots of sunshine through the afternoon. Winds will be generally light. Temperatures a tad cool, though, only 11 to 14 degrees for your afternoon. Northern Peninsula will hover around 10 to 12 degrees. And then again, cooling down for Lab City, down to 11 degrees with that rain moving in. That rain will eventually head towards central Labrador and then eventually the coast as we head through the evening hours. But we will see a cool down. We'll talk about that when I come up for the long range forecast.
Well, experts say this province needs 60,000 new homes in the next 6 years to deal with the housing crisis. It's a big topic of conversation here at the Housing Forum in St. John's. We'll get into it coming up.
org.
Well, 60,000. That's how many homes the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says this province needs to build in the next 6 years to deal with the housing crisis. I'm here today at the Housing Forum in St. John's with the Home Builders Association CEO, Alexis Foster. So it's a really big number. That's 10,000 homes a year for 6 years. How much of that is on the minds of the people here today?
Well, that is a conversation that's been had in that room today. 60,000 is a huge number. And it seems incredibly daunting. Unfortunately, with the way everything is right now in the industry, it's not necessarily achievable. However, we need to definitely continue to build towards that number. We need more homes in order to address housing affordability in our province.
What are some of the challenges facing home builders these days?
Well, we talk a lot about labor shortages. Right now, we are finding so many shortages when it comes to labor. Many skilled trades are unavailable. So that is one major challenge that our builders are finding. Access to land has been something that's been discussed quite extensively today. In order to access land and to develop the land, that is definitely slowing down development and adding to the costs. And then we have developmental regulations as well, which are adding to costs. And a lot of times people just assume that it's the builders that are trying to make all the big money, when really they are absorbing those costs, and that has to be passed down to the consumers.
Mm-hmm. What do you think needs to happen to get more homes built? I know this is very much a political conversation as well. It's what all the politicians are talking about. What do home builders maybe need from government to speed things along? What needs to happen to tackle this housing crisis?
Well, this is a great step here today. We've been very fortunate to have representatives from numerous municipalities here. We have municipalities NL here as well. So it is great that they're open to the conversations. They've listened to some feedback from our developers forum today. Developers have been identifying key challenges that they're facing, and we are starting the conversations between us and the municipalities, as well as the provincial government, on how to address some of these concerns.
Mm-hmm. And I guess a big part of this is like the type of housing as well, with the high cost of living and the high cost of housing in particular right now, the kinds of homes that people can afford and how to get those built. How much of a part of the conversation is this idea of affordability for the low-income people, for the middle class?
So we always find that there's some confusion around affordability for a lot of people. Affordability means you're spending 30% of your income on your housing. So 30% of your income, depending on what you make, can be a wide range for many people. So we have to definitely ensure that we are building homes that are on the lower end of pricing. And we also have to ensure that we have some of those more expensive homes, because certain people do want those, and it's still affordable to them.
And how about like apartment buildings? How do we get more of those built to help with this housing crisis?
Well, it's great to see the municipalities, provincial government really stepping up and doing some things around purpose-built rentals. We're also seeing with the City of St. John's, they are starting to waive some of their development fees through their Housing Accelerator funding. So all of these are steps in the right direction. The federal government has also announced the removal of GST on purpose-built rentals. So all of those things help make that business model work a little bit more. So we may see some more housing developed in terms of apartment buildings. But again, we need to find that land availability. We have to ensure that it's viable, and we have to ensure that that's the type of housing that people want.
Do you have a sense of how we got here? You know, there are people moving to the province. We're seeing immigration. Affordability is an issue with the cost of living. How did we get to this place where we have a housing crisis, do you think?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, and I think that's what a lot of people are assuming, that it happened overnight and that we're going to fix it overnight, and it's going to be a long-term process in order to address this situation that we're in right now. And it's going to involve a lot of those collaborative discussions between all levels of government, the public and the private sector. So it's great to see the steps in the direction that we're going. It seems like those changes are being made and people are receptive to working collaboratively together.
And who's taking part in this housing forum today? Who's in the room forum, and what are some of the main topics that you're tackling?
So we've had builders, developers, renovators. Many of our members are in the room today. We have real estate agents in there. There's Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Realtors are here today presenting our market trends. We had the City of St. John's talking about their Housing Accelerator Fund and some funding and financing available through their programs. We had the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation here talking about some funding that they have available. We have our national CEO, Kevin Lee from CHBA National here, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what the association has been doing. And of course, we had our developers panel where we identified key issues that these members are identifying. And these key issues we hope will help impact some change.
And so a real meeting of the minds, I guess, of people involved in the housing sector. What do you hope comes out of this forum?
Well, I really hope that there's some tangible change. I hope that we come out of this and then next year we can actually present some of those key changes that have been made. So whether if it's changes to development regulations or maybe changes to some funding programs, the provincial government listened to us with their basement and subsidiary suite program and actually extended that to include new construction, which is a step in the right direction, and we are appreciative that they've listened to the feedback. So we really hope that this session today will enable more growth and collaboration, and next year hopefully we can do even more.
Okay, well, Alexis Foster, thank you so much for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm all packed, it's time to move away. This was never.
A St. John's man who makes video games in his spare time has just released his fourth, and it's available for purchase as of October 1st.
Getting games onto consoles has just been mind-blowing.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you what Gordon Little's been up to coming up. A St. John's man who taught himself how to make video games has just released his 4th for purchase at the beginning of October, with plans for wider distribution in 2025. Now, if this is something that you didn't know about, let me tell you.
I'm all packed, it's time to move away. This was never a place I could stay.
Moving houses out for PC on Steam today, and I have the same publisher as before, and in a month or two I'm going to pack it all up and send it to them, and they're going to port it to PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Power washing simulator, happy cozy, Alan Wake 2, psychological nightmare, scary. What if could I do this? And that's what I did. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make a moving out simulator. Posted about it on my social media, and people were like, oh, that looks really, really cute. And for months, I didn't tell anyone about the other part of it. I played it super straight. It was just a cozy simulator with silly physics, and you could just throw boxes across the room and kick items out of the way. But that only lasts for about the first half hour. And then
it's great to leave this place. Never thought I could change my fate.
Eventually you reach a point where you have to be honest with the audience, because you don't want to trick anyone. They don't want someone to buy this game thinking it's a happy packing simulator when in fact it's that for the first half hour and then turns into a horror. You want to have an agreement with the audience where it's a cozy game. Wink. You want them to know it's going to go downhill, but not how.
There are more boxes.
This is a mind game rather than a monster game. You still can't die in the game. You can definitely get scared and shocked and mostly be left with uneasy feelings in your mind. What's going on? What happened in this house? Who's my character? And how are you relating to it? And I left it very open for interpretation. This is my fun outlet. Someone might be really into hockey, might be really into TV shows, movies. I really like creating stuff. I've been creating stuff since I was a kid. I couldn't stop drawing all over my homework, and it hasn't gotten any better since then. I never thought I would get anything past making little games on computer. The idea of getting games onto consoles has just been mind-blowing. I still feel like an amateur, and I probably always will, but people keep reminding me that there aren't many people around, like locally, doing stuff like this. There's no big companies even. There's a few small indies. I don't know anyone who's got 3 or 4 games on computer and console and in a museum. It's wild.
Well, the Liberals voted against a Bloc Québécois motion this afternoon, a move that could eventually lead to the toppling of the minority government.
Blanchet.
Monsieur Blanchet.
Monsieur Saint-Marie.
Monsieur Saint-Marie.
The motion asked Parliament to back an increase to the old age security pension for seniors between 65 and 74 years old. That motion got a majority of votes today, but because it's a financial matter, the change cannot take effect without the government's backing. Now, the Liberals are reluctant, in part because of the $16 billion price tag. The Bloc now says that unless the Liberals get behind the motion and another one protecting the supply management system, it will enter talks with opposition parties to bring down the government. And staying with politics, a PC candidate in New Brunswick is facing calls for her resignation. Sherry Wilson is under fire because on Monday, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, she issued a public statement drawing a connection between residential schools and provincial gender identity policies. The CBC's Kayla Hounsel reports.
As New Brunswickers gathered to honor the children who didn't come home from residential schools, a political controversy was brewing.
To have that day and their memory
darkened by a comment by a person running for a political party and putting her political spin on it was very disheartening.
On the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a progressive conservative candidate released a public statement implying a parallel between residential schools and New Brunswick's policy on gender identity in schools. Last year, the PC government reversed a policy allowing teachers to use a student's preferred name and pronouns without parental consent. Candidate Sherry Wilson wrote, "We cannot afford to repeat the tragic mistakes that destroyed the lives of thousands of Indigenous families. Therefore, I am committed to keeping the parents of minor children aware of and involved in their children's development while they are entrusted to our government schools."
We're talking about kids that were taken from their families.
On a campaign
Well, apologies. It seems we had some technical difficulties in Toronto, so we're going to recap some national and international news. The fighting and the rhetoric are heating up between Israel and Iran following yesterday's missile barrage. Israel is stepping up ground operations against Iran's proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is threatening ongoing and far-reaching retaliation.
The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies. We will stand by the rule we established. Whoever attacks us, we will attack him.
Israel says its current operations are targeting Hezbollah infrastructure, such as tunnels near the border with Lebanon. Its troops are meeting resistance, and 8 members of the Israel Defense Forces have been killed in fighting. An Iranian commander says there will be further strikes against Israeli infrastructure if the incursions continue. Well, back here at home, St. John's isn't known to be a destination for world-class ballet dancers, but the new artistic director of Kittiwake Dance Theatre is hoping to play a role in changing that. He's lived and danced in some of the world's biggest ballet cities, but after seeing a posting for the leadership role at Kittiwake and reading more about the city, he was intrigued.
In a humble city like this, a little company's trying to become a global sensation. I want to be part of that. I grew up in an artist family. My grandfather was a composer, my uncle was a composer, my cousin composer. My parents are actors, still to this day. So I grew up around theater, stage was pretty much my cradle. Then I watched musical one day, Annie. And then I saw all these kids tap dancing, singing, having fun. And I finally said, I want to do that. But then my parents said, singing, acting, you can do it once you're a little bit older. I was 6 years old then. But ballet is the basic of many dance forms. And it takes a long time to perfect it. So they recommended I go to ballet school. And then I just stayed. We've been working on this upcoming show called Intersection, happening in October 4th here. This show features 3 Canadian choreographers, James Kudelka, Christopher House, Sveta Hector. The 3 creators, they create their vision, as they should, and they've contributed in their own way amazingly. And as an artistic director, I saw the whole picture and said, okay, as a rhythm and contrast, I should put this kind of piece in here and this kind of piece in there. So that's kind of what I did, balancing the scale. And the title Intersection kind of represents how artists kind of interact with each other. We all come from different backgrounds, different countries, different visions, different upbringing, different challenges and successes. Unknowingly, we're influencing each other. And I feel that's happening in every level of artistic endeavor, whether it's studio, whether it's rehearsal, whether it's show like this. We all kind of see, feel, talk, dance, and we all influence each other. We change afterwards, and we don't even know it yet. The seeds of change have been planted. And I think coming to theater is similar to that. As an audience, you come, you might love it, you might hate it. That's the beauty of culture, is that, we communicate and we change. So that's what's happening here. The dancers have grown so much since I started working day one up till now. So it's really, you're witnessing a beginning of change, really.
That's a nice story. So we're looking ahead now to the weather on the weekend. And I know for the past few nights, you've been talking about things looking pretty nice on the weekend.
Finally seeing a little bit of a change in the forecast for the east. I know it has been beautiful for other parts of the province, the lucky ones, I guess. But yeah, things are going to change. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head into your Friday. Generally, we are looking at the chances of showers up across Labrador, so it's going to be a tad unsettled for you. The day may start nice through central areas of Labrador, but for the most part, It will be an unsettled day. And across the island, we finally get back into some southerly flow or even more westerly flow, and that should allow the clouds to clear through the day, at least through some portions of the afternoon. And then as we head towards the evening, we will start to see some cloud cover move back in for the west and parts of the south coast. And that is because you are now in onshore flow. And up across Labrador, like I said, generally just looking at the chance of some showers through the afternoon. Overall, your daytime highs will sit between 10 to 15 degrees, and across the island, we'll see a bit of a warm up, a couple of degrees of a warm up anyway. Our daytime highs will sit between 13 to 18 degrees into the afternoon on Friday. So not too bad. And then as we head into Saturday, again, a pretty decent day for most of us, although it does look like we should see some clouds that will move in through the first part of the day for the island. And then we're looking at some showers possible for the west coast as well as the northern peninsula. Most of Labrador will sit in some clear skies for the day, except for the southeast and maybe even around Happy Valley, Goose Bay. You're still looking at the chances of, or the cloud cover and the chances of some showers as the day goes on. Now, as far as the temperatures go, we're generally going to be sitting above where we should be sitting this time of year. So around 15 to 17 degrees through the day. Northern Peninsula, you'll be sitting around 11 degrees. And again, your shower chances will move in late day. And then up across Labrador, single digits the story for Nain, but otherwise back down to around, this is still a little bit above seasonable, but back closer to where you should be sitting, so 10 to 13 degrees for your daytime highs. Long range forecast, once we get into Sunday, unfortunately, we go back into that onshore flow, that northerly flow, which keeps temperatures around 10 to 12 degrees with the chances of showers both Sunday and Monday. Same thing for central Newfoundland as you see that big drop in temperatures. The western portion, a few showers on Sunday, but some showers will return again on Monday, hovering between 10 to 12 degrees. And then for Labrador, after some showers on Thursday, nice stretch of weather, although cooler than it has been. Your overnight lows dipping into the minus single digits. And western Labrador, same thing, with some sunshine and your overnight lows between 1 and about -3 through the evening. Our weather photo of the day today is Burnt Point. Take a look at this beauty.
Oh, lovely.
Now, I just told you where it was, but it definitely looks like it could be the Caribbean there. This is Mouse Hole, and Jane shared that shot with us. Just a great view, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so nice. The water, it does look very tropical. It looks almost turquoise.
Yeah, she said if those evergreens weren't there, you'd definitely think it was the tropics.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. You have any weather photos you'd like to share with us? Send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Mouse Hole. Okay.
That's what she said.
I guess for the rock formations.
For that formation, yeah, looks pretty cool. I gotta go check that out.
Okay, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.